Chris Nichilo is here. I can't tell you how thankful I am for the way we met and the friendship that we have. Within few short conversations, I had, quite a bit of RSP money that I was looking to place, and I did that with him and his wife. I'm his client. Most of my friends that listen to my advice, not Helen obviously, are his clients. Friends of friends are clients. I have 100% trust in the guy and what he does, and the way he educates, and the way he looks at money, relationship with money, projects, risk, return, and all those things. So,
my name is Chris, and 10 years ago I knew absolutely nothing about money. I really didn't. I was a scared 30-year-old. I'm now just a fat 40-year-old. I grew the beard to cover up. In November, they say. I had mine going in October, but 30 years old, I was looking at starting a family. I now have a 3-year-old, and I'm married happily, and I was scared. And I don't know if any of you are in that boat now or were in that boat previously. But in order to deal with my fear, what I did is I started asking people questions. And the first question I asked people was, how do you manage a mortgage? Because can we agree, for most people, the mortgage is the largest liability you have, yes? And if you have a bigger one, you probably don't need to be here listening to this presentation. But for most people, that's how it is. And so I started asking people, how do you manage a mortgage? I'm going to have one soon, and I don't know the first thing about this, and it scared the heck out of me that I would borrow several $100,000, not understanding how I was going to pay it back and how I was going to avoid being taken advantage of. You ever felt like you might be taken advantage of by a bank? Mm-hmm. My point is, without education, we are all vulnerable. And what I'm going to teach you today is just some things that I learned along the way once I realized that people don't really know. And if you Google money, you get all kinds of stuff. I mean, like, if you think you're going to learn about money in Google, it's numbers, right? Numbers don't lie, that's the beauty of them. But what we need to do is take the time to look at them critically, right? And if we look at things critically, if we look at things strategically, if we look at it like it's a game and there's no losing, like you can't lose, then you'll do the work. And if you do the work, and I've done the work, you'll find out some pretty impressive things that can change your life. They really can. They can do it quickly. Now, what I'm going to do for you tonight is I'm going to take the things I've learned and distill them down into a language you can all understand. I'm going to show you the numbers in a way that you can receive it. And that's probably the genius in all of this, if there is some, is that it took me 2 years to figure out how to teach it all, what I learned, to everybody else. Since then, it's been really great for me, my family, my business. It's been fantastic. Now, some of you may become clients of mine. Maybe none of you will. It doesn't matter to me. It really doesn't matter to me. Whether or not you do any business with us afterwards will only be a reflection of how much value you see in what I'm going to present to you. And I want you to just take it that way. If you're a note taker, take notes. If you're not a note taker, don't take notes. I've designed the presentation to be a conversation. I've designed it so that you can just listen and understand concepts, and everything else we can deal with later. The temptation will be that as I'm showing you something, if you do have a little breakthrough, the temptation will be to suddenly try to put all your numbers to work in your head at the same time. And while you're doing that, you'll miss the next thing. So if you can just tame your mind for the next hour and a half or so, I'm going to show you some pretty powerful things about your money later. But right now, I just want to show you, first of all, that it's possible for any average Canadian family to pay their mortgage off in half the time with the same money. That probably sounds too good to be true right now, but it's not. It's just numbers. But if you would have been shown, when you were growing up, if you'd have been shown how to do your banking the way I'm going to show you tonight, you would never have done it the way you do it now. And the way we do it now, true or false, is that we bank with 2 hubs in terms of bank accounts. We bank with a checking account and a savings account, yes? Anybody bank differently? If you do, that's great, because you should. But most people, I mean, when I was growing up, I was taught, my first account, I remember it like yesterday, I was 13 years old, I just got my first job at McDonald's, and I got a TD, my first bank account. That's what it said on it, my first account. It was a little green book. It went in a sleeve. You went and you printed. You got to print it if you're old enough. You know what that's like. If you're young enough, you're looking at me with those eyes right now. But that's how it was, and I was proud to have that account, right? Gave me some sort of legitimacy that I was starting to make money. And I didn't make a lot of money at the time, but this is what I learned. And guess who I learned it from? My father. My father, he said a few simple things when I was growing up. He said, take financial advice from people who make more money than you. And by the way, there's a lot of people that make more money than me, but I found that the ones that make the most money are the banks. So I learned from the banks, okay? And you can too. That's what I'm going to show you tonight. He also said, you know, this is the way we do it. And when I asked him, why do we do it this way, guess what he said? Because that's the way it's always been done. That's how my dad taught me. Don't ask questions, just do it. That's what I did. My father's Italian. That's how he was. He would just say, this is how you do it, and don't ask questions. And the reason when people say don't ask questions is because they don't have answers. Yes? Okay? So we didn't go there. And you probably didn't either. You learned how to do it this way. But strategically, if I asked you to strategically tell me why do you do it this way, you would really have no answer. Because there's no strategic advantage to banking this way. But it does benefit someone. Yes. What it does is essentially allows you to put money in a holding cell, in either checking or savings account, and the bank has access to it at any time, as long as you can have it when you need it, all right? And the bank machine will spit it out when you need it. And you don't charge very much interest. How many get interest on your checking account? Zero. None. And if you're happy with what you get on the savings account, then you really need to listen, okay? Especially to the second part of the presentation. Okay, but we do it this way because that's the way it's always been done. But there is a better way, a much, much better way, and I'm going to show it to you tonight. So, quickly, the way we've always done it is on the left. Should be coming any second now. Okay? Income into the checking account, expenses out of the checking account, anything that's left over moves to a savings account. It's simple, okay? The way that I think we should do it, and I think you'll agree if you haven't seen this presentation before, after tonight you will agree, mortgage, line of credit, and credit card. Now the difference in those three accounts to the ones on the left-hand side is that they're all what we've been taught to use as borrowing vehicles, okay? They're all borrowing vehicles. That's how you were taught to use them. You were taught to borrow money in the form of a mortgage, borrow money in the form of a line of credit, borrow money on a credit card. I'm going to teach you how to leverage money off those, because one thing those three accounts have in common is that all the money is whose? It's the bank's. And all the money here is yours. I'm going to show you how to use the bank's money to pay the bank's interest and reduce your costs. Now, penny saved, penny earned. It's an old saying, right? And I'll tell you something, what I've learned over 10 years. People do not pay attention to the money they're not saving. They don't. I bet a lot of you, because you're real estate investors, I bet a lot of you pay a lot of attention to what you can make in real estate. But not many of you have put enough time into understanding what you can save by managing your real estate properly, managing your debt properly. And if you learn how to manage your debt, you will build equity at 4 to 5 times the normal pace. How many people could use 4 to 5 times the amount of equity they have now and that they're going to build over the next 5 years, for example, 10 years? It adds up, and it adds up really quick. And so what I want to show you is how to use these 3 accounts instead of those 2 accounts. Never really use these, and comes with a bit of a disclaimer. If you think you're going to walk out of here, no matter how excited you get about it, and just do it a different way tomorrow, think about how long you've been banking this way, okay? It's going to take a little bit of time. We're going to put the training wheels on so that you can learn, but like anything else, right? If I want to lose weight, I can't just eat well today. I've got to eat well today, and then tomorrow, and I got to exercise the next day, and so on. And we got to do it consistently over a long period of time. If we do that, we will see the results, and the results are striking. Okay? So, in order to move forward with a different way of doing your banking, you have to understand how these accounts are different. Because they all charge interest. That's what they have in common. The mortgage, the line of credit, the credit. But they certainly don't charge it the same way. And they're not created equal. And once you have a solid understanding of how they differ, then you'll understand how you can use one against the other. Okay? I'm going to show you those differences. So let's look at features and benefits of all 3. So a first mortgage. Now I put first mortgage there because second mortgages are different, third mortgages are different, okay? But first mortgages are the most common. That's what typically we get on our first home when we buy or on our investment property, okay? And typically our range of rates are between 2 and 6%. Now historically, have there ever been times where those rates are not accurate, that the rates are higher? Yes. My parents tell me about it every Thanksgiving, okay? Now, the compounding interest is a feature on the mortgage that exists on the mortgage, it exists on the credit card, it does not exist on a line of credit. And we're talking about a personal line of credit. And it's very important that people understand the difference between simple and compounded interest. How many of you would say you really understand the difference between simple and compounded interest? Okay, fantastic. That's normal. About 3 people in the room, confident enough to put their hand up, right? They probably all put their hands down if I said, why don't you come teach it to the rest of the room? But the fact is that most people don't have a solid understanding of what simple and compounded interest are. I'm going to teach it to you here in a minute, and you'll never forget it. Okay, here's how it works. Simple interest is this. What's your name?
Arta.
Sorry?
Arta.
Arta.
A-R-T-A.
Arta. Let's say Arta needs to borrow $1, okay? And she wants to borrow $1, and I happen to have $1 that I can give her. So I offer her the $1, and these are my terms, Arta, okay? I'm going to give you 1 year to pay me back, and I'm going to charge you 100% interest, okay? So you don't have to pay me back for a year, but when you do pay me back, you got to pay me back $1 that you borrowed plus 100% interest. So how much do you have to pay me back?
$2?
$2. Okay, that's simple interest. You know why? Because it's simple. Yeah, it's easy. Okay, that's how it is. Now, some accounts charge interest this way. Some accounts charge interest a different way. Here's when Arta says to me, hey Chris, look, I don't need a year to pay you back the $1, and I really don't want to pay 100% interest. So is there something we could, work out? And I said, well, I'm a reasonable guy, so here's what we'll do. Instead of a year, now remember, when I lend you money, I want to make money, right? That's what's in it for me. So if you think always like a borrower, start thinking like a lender, okay? Because that's how the bank thinks. They think about them, you think about you. We have a saying in my brokerage where we say, it's impossible for your bank to have your best interest in mind when it's their money you're borrowing. Would you agree? Mm-hmm. Everybody should use a mortgage broker. The problem is there's good ones, there's bad ones, and there's more bad ones than good ones. That's the problem. Okay? But the fact is that when it comes to your best interest, how could you expect a bank to have your best interest in mind, okay, when it's their money you're borrowing? It doesn't make sense, right? So we just think it through. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But Arta, you want better terms. I'm going to give you the better terms. I'm going to give you 2 6-month terms instead of 1 year, okay? And you have the option to pay me back at the end of 6 months in full, and then we're done, okay? But I'm not changing the interest rate because that's why I'm in the game, right? I want to make money. So I'm going to give you a chance to pay me back 50% interest after 6 months, which would mean $1 plus 50 cents, right? So at the 6-month mark, I call you and say, do you have money for me? And if you say to me, well, I have $1.45, but there's a good reason why, I'm going to tell you to keep the $1.45, right? Because I'm not going to take less than $1.50. You got to pay me in full or not at all. And if you don't pay me in full, then we're going to start the next 6 months with an opening balance of $1.50, right? Because you already earned the 50 cents. And then you're going to pay me 50% on the $1.50, which is 75 cents. So you're going to pay me $2.25. Now guess what happens if you can't pay me the $2.25 at the end of the year, right? I'm a nice guy, so I'm going to extend for you, no problem, another 6 months, another 6 months. This is what we call semi-annually compounding. That's how it works. That's on $1 in 1 year. Imagine $300,000 every 6 months for 30 years. And that's how a mortgage runs away from you. Plain and simple, that's what does it, okay? The interest frequency, well, a mortgage charges interest every day. How many people knew that? Every day, okay? And in fact, the average mortgage in Canada charges more interest per day, even at today's rates, than it costs to feed a family of 4. Okay, but the problem is, you don't see it, right? Like what would be great, it'll never happen, but what would be great is every time you use your debit card, a little message come up on the screen that says, by the way, your interest for your mortgage today was $35, right? That would piss you off, right? And you would notice it after a while. You'd start paying attention, but if you don't pay attention to it, it just keeps adding up. That's how it works. And how the mortgage works is at the end of the month, okay, this is going to alarm some people. At the end of the month, the mortgage calculates daily interest for every day of that month, adds it all up, lops it on top of the balance, then takes your payment and subtracts your payment. So really, all the interest comes first, then the payment, and whatever's left over is your principal contribution. That's why, believe it or not, it doesn't pay to make weekly or bi-weekly payments. You know why? Because your bank holds the payments the whole month and applies them only once. So they will take the payment halfway through the month, and you will pay interest on that payment for the next 2 weeks until it's applied. Understand? Now I'm going to show you how you get the same effect of paying bi-weekly and accelerate your mortgage, but I'm going to put it on steroids with the system I'm going to show you. Okay, but you should actually be paying monthly. The only reason you should pay bi-weekly or weekly is because you're afraid that when you got paid on Friday, if you don't make the mortgage payment Friday, that Monday you're going to have a problem. Okay, convenience is the reason why you should make bi-weekly payments, not acceleration. Okay, rewards. Does anybody get rewards for making their mortgage payment? No? You get a great more. Wow. Yeah, that's a great trick. Okay, but really there's no grace period, there's really no rewards, and the balance range is very high. It's the highest balance account we have. Let's look at the unsecured line of credit. Very important, unsecured line of credit. This is not the line of credit attached to your house. This is basically the credit card with low interest.
Personal.
Yeah, personal line of credit, right? Usually has a balance in and around, $5,000 to $10,000 and so on. It charges simple interest, which is extremely nice. This is going to be our new checking account, is your line of credit. Very important account. Think of it that way as your new checking account. Think of your mortgage as your new savings account because you get a huge return on investment by paying your mortgage down faster than you would by keeping money in a savings account. This is your new checking account. The interest frequency, it charges once a month. And it has a really unique feature about how it charges interest. It takes the balance of your account every day for the month, adds it up, and divides by the number of days to get an average daily balance and charges you interest there. Now why that's important is because it means that, well, these are Post-its. This is going to be tricky. Okay, it means that if this was my account and I started with a balance up here, let's say this is a high balance and this is a low balance, if I started the month with a high balance on my line of credit and ended the balance high on my line of credit, but through the month we did this, I would pay interest here. Understand? What it means is you can strategically manage this account, and I'm going to show you how. Okay? No rewards, no grace period, low balance typically on a line of credit. Very manageable balance. Would you agree? Trying to pay down a mortgage and focusing on that is like looking up at Mount Everest and going, how am I going to climb this thing? Right? And a lot of people get resigned to being in debt forever with the mortgage. That's what happens. They think, how am I ever going to pay this off? So let's say a tax return comes in, a windfall of some sort, $2,000, $3,000, maybe $5,000. The thought goes through our mind, you know what I should do with this? I should pay it down to my mortgage. And then the thought right after that is, what's the point? I'm never going to get there. I'd rather take my family on a vacation, or I'd rather buy that big screen TV, or a new car, or whatever it is. This is the cycle. You think banks know it?
Yeah.
They study us. They study it. They know exactly how it works in our brains. Now, that's not everybody. It's about 10% of the population that's extremely disciplined with their money, and applause to them, because they probably don't need the system I'm going to show you, because they're probably already doing it themselves. They figured out a way, and they're extremely disciplined. It's not everybody. So for the masses, we need systems. We need processes. We almost need like disciplinary measures built in, right, to help us, because trust me when I tell you, the banking system is set up to keep you in debt forever. It is. It's how it's set up. And you'll understand that more at the end of tonight. Okay, the credit card. It's like so I refer to the first mortgage as the serial killer of debt, okay, because it doesn't care about people, and it just keeps charging interest, and if you don't pay it, then your kids have to pay it, and so on. It just keeps going. This is like the little cousin, okay, of the mortgage. It's lower balance, higher interest, same features, compounded daily interest. Okay, those two features make it very aggressive, okay, in nature. So if we were looking at aggressive, non-aggressive, very aggressive, okay, but two things the credit card has that we really like. One, if you put money on your credit card and you pay it off, you get points. Okay, I flew my family down to Florida on air miles last week. It was great. You know, we do it once a year. Load up all our points through the year, and towards the end of the year, at some point, we take a little trip. It's really nice. Okay. Points are great, and there's a grace period. You know you can lend yourself money on a credit card for 30 to 45 days and pay no interest?
Yes.
Everybody knows that, right? Yeah. So if you were to use that strategically, right, you could make this really work. Like, so I'm going to show you how to put these three accounts together. There are features in green of each account that we like, the rest we don't like and have to manage. That's what I'm going to show you. So the system what I'm about to show you is called the method. Okay? If you don't get it all here tonight and you're not the owner of the camera that's recording it, there is lots of footage online of me doing this presentation, so you can watch it again. And actually, we just had it professionally recorded, and I just got the professional version edited and done today in my email box, so I'm going to send it to Todor. He'll probably put it up for you guys all, and you can see it. It's just me in a theater with a big audience doing it, but it's like 3 cameras. It looks really fancy, all nice. Okay? So I'm going to show you this system. The best way to show it to you, I've found, is to put real numbers to it. Okay? So I'm going to pretend that I'm dealing with the average 2-income earning family in Canada with the average mortgage. Okay? If you're the kind of person who is a bit of a nitpicker for details, okay, I don't know what personalities we have in the room, so I want to just address the people who are the nitpickers. If you're going to challenge me on the numbers, like you're like, that's not the average mortgage in Canada. Trust me when I tell you, it's all relative. It wouldn't matter if I used $400,000 mortgage, it wouldn't matter. The point is, savings is savings, interest is interest, right? And people say to me, well, what if the interest rate went up? Well, if the interest rate went up, there would be more interest to save. Yeah? If the interest rate comes down, there would be less interest to save because there would be less interest charge. So don't worry too much about the details. This is the only part of the presentation I'm going to say, trust me, just so that you don't lose, like go off track in your head. You're like, this guy's, right? Don't be like that. Trust me, this is good stuff, and it will do you well if you just have the open mind to see the example for what it is. Okay. Average 2-income earning family in Canada, according to Statistics Canada, makes $6,000 net income a month, and they spend 5 of it. Okay? Now some of you may be sitting there going, that's not me, I don't have any money left over at the end of the month. I get it. This is just the average, and this is where you would want to be. This is where you would want to be, maybe clearing about $1,000 a month, and then you have to do with whatever you want with that money. You can save it, you can spend it, which most people do. You can invest it, which some people do. You know, you can do a lot of things with the money. It's up to you. We call it discretionary income. Okay, and the average mortgage in Canada is $220,000. You have to understand, this takes into consideration all the small mortgages in PEI and all the massive mortgages in Vancouver, right? So it's, and everything in between. So the average mortgage is $220,000. You go to Oakville, where I'm from, it's more like $500,000. Okay, you go to certain pockets down here in the GTA, Toronto, it can be, yeah, it can be crazy, okay? But the example is the average. Okay, average 5-year fixed rate over the last 15 years, believe it or not, 5.15%. Remember, today is atypical times. Can we all agree? It's not going to last forever, yes? In fact, people have been calling me lately saying, so, should I get my mortgage now or should I wait? Are rates going to go up? It's the most popular question I get at the office every day. And all I can say is, who knows now that we've had a new parliament, a new change, right? Who knows what the Liberal government's going to do with rates? I had a good sense for what Harper was doing with rates and how he felt about it, and think, I have no idea about this, just like you. And any mortgage broker tells you they do, they're lying, okay? And we don't know. So if you're in a position where you're trying to debate and you get the chance right now to lock your mortgages in at today's low rates, I would take it, right? You can't lose. Get 5 years at 2.5% or whatever it is. You're in good shape. Okay, but the average over the last 15 years is almost 5.25. The most popular amortization people choose today is 30 years. It used to be 35 when you were allowed to take 35, and it was 40 before that when you were allowed to take 40. We will always bite off as much as we can chew, and actually I endorse this. If you're following a system like I'm going to show you, you should always take the longest amortization possible, because amortization is your obligation. You understand? So if the amortization is 30 years and the payment is $1193.89, you are obligated to pay $1193.89 a month. You take a 25-year because you want to speed it up and feel good about it, it means you're obligated now to pay $1,300 or $1,400, even if your life goes in the tank, right? Something happens. And does things happen to you? Because they happen to me, right? So we should always take the longest amortization, okay, when you have a chance to do your mortgage, and then you can control, right? Every mortgage comes with a prepayment privilege. If you understand your prepayment privilege, you can pay more. You can be on a 25-year plan with a 30-year amortization. You understand what I'm saying? Okay, so for those of you who have investment properties and so on, take the longest amortization, control the mortgage yourself. Okay, the monthly payment on that property is $1193.89. Now, if you were this family, you came into my office and said, hey, I watched this video, I heard about the method thing, I want to do it, teach me. I would say, okay, the deal we have to make is that you have to give me 1 year, okay, and follow instructions. Because a mortgage is a process, not an event, okay? We don't pay mortgages off overnight, we pay them off over time, which means you have to give me time to show you the results. But I'm going to show you quick results, but I want you to compare those results to where you would have been 1 year from today. Just follow instructions. And if they say yes, then they're going to be in good shape. So this is how it works. You've got 3 buckets. You got 3 buckets. This is the mortgage, this is the line of credit, and this is the credit card. Now, we're going to put this at 5.15%. We'll put the line of credit at 6% for now, and the credit card at 19.9%. The average Canadian mortgage is $220,000. At 5.15 over 30 years, how much interest do you think this mortgage will accrue? If you took 30 years to pay it off, how much interest would you pay? Let's throw a number out.
80,000.
80,000.
250,000.
250,000. 400. Do you see when I surveyed people at the beginning?
Yeah.
These are the answers, right? We just went from 80 to 400 in the same room of 30 people. Okay? The answer is 209,000. Okay? It's in interest. Ah, yeah, you were right, 400. So this is what we call buying one house and paying for 2. How many of you like that plan? Right? Like if they put that up in the window of TD Bank, would you go? Right? You wouldn't go. Okay, so 209,000. That should get your attention. If it gets your attention, okay, once you see it, right, an interesting thing happens. You should be angry about that because it shouldn't be that way. Okay, you're able to do better. I promise you. If you were able to buy the house, you're able to do better than this plan. Okay, and I'm going to show you how to do it. So the first thing you're going to do is understand that a mortgage is like a set of steps. Okay? In this case, 30 years is 360 steps, each one representing a month. Every time you go up a month, you make a mortgage payment. Part of that payment is interest, part of it is principal. We all know that. Okay? But let's look at how much is interest and how much is principal. Now, I bet if I asked you, a lot of people would say, well, I know it's a lot of interest. I get that. It's a lot of interest. But if you actually know how much, okay, it's going to hurt you, and the pain is going to be the ticket to the pleasure later of not paying it. So here's how it is. In month 1, $934.19 of that mortgage payment, which is $1193.89, is interest, okay? Now in month 2, it gets better, right? $933.09 of interest. And in month 3, you start getting the pattern, right? It's about $1. Like $1 and change every month. Less to interest, more to principal. At this pace, it would take 17 and a half years before 50% of your payment was principal and 50% was interest, okay? This pace is what keeps people in debt forever because 17 years from now, you've already given up, okay? This is what happens. You buy the first house so excited, you got the mortgage, you got the house, 5 years goes by, all you do is make the mortgage payments, you get your statement, it's time to renew, and you realize you paid $75,000 worth of payments into this thing, and you got $15,000 of equity. And then it hits you, and then it's too late, because already the interest is accruing. Once the interest is there, you have to pay it. It doesn't matter how long it takes, and the bank will look at you, and they will shake your hand and say, don't worry, we'll just re-extend you back to 30 years, right? Start again. And it won't take long before you go, you know what, to hell with it. Give me the equity, okay, the 15 grand, just give me that. Start the clock again at 30 years. I'm never paying this thing off. And every 5 years you take your 15 grand back. It's like a cash rebate from the 75 grand you paid in. That's how it works, okay? So, we don't want to be on that plan. What we want to do is skip steps. I'm going to teach you how to skip steps. Here's what you would do. This family makes $1,000 more than they spend every month. Without making more money or spending less each month, they are capable of paying additional $12,000 to their mortgage every year if they wanted to. Okay? Now, some may not want to, some may want to, but when they see what it's worth to them, they may want to more. But here's what I know to be true about people. We overestimate what's coming in and underestimate what's going out. Is this true? Okay? So when someone comes in and I say, how much do you make every month and how much do you spend? And they say $6,000 and $5,000, we knock off 25%. Okay, so if it's $1,000 difference every month, which is $12,000 a year, first thing I want you to do is take $9,000 from your line of credit and pay it to your mortgage, which is going to take the balance from $220,000 down to $211,000. Are you all with me? Okay, we have to agree. Is there more debt, less debt, or the same debt as we had 5 seconds ago? It's exactly the same, okay? Because some people get spooked when you say borrow from the line of credit and move to the mortgage. But all you did was move debt. You didn't really do anything more than move debt. But you moved it from the most aggressive place to the least aggressive place. And we can agree there's a new problem here that you've created, this $9,000. I'm going to show you how to manage that in a second. But what I want you to focus on is what happened here, because this is where the drama is. Here's what happened. It would have taken 33 regular monthly mortgage payments of $1,193.89 to get the balance down to $211,000. Do you understand? Okay? Because each payment, you're paying $1,200 a month, but only $250 or so is actually going to principal. So it takes you 33 months to get there. You did it in one fell swoop. And what happens as a result is that every step, every month that you skipped, it's like Eastern medicine for your mortgage. You prevent the interest from ever getting there in the first place. Remember, the interest accrues every day on the balance. Well, if you skip those 33 months, then what you've done is canceled $29,000 of interest. Okay? $29,000 of interest off of that number of 209,804.43. If you never did anything else, if that was it for you, you just never followed my instructions the rest of the way, you would only pay $180,000-ish of interest to own this house. And you'd be 3.5 years ahead. So you would pay it down in 26 years, 26 and a half. Okay, did everybody understand what I just did? Okay, so that's step one. Now, you just did this payment. You got this nice $29,000 of savings, which is huge, really, because where else can you turn $9,000 into $29,000 overnight? And whose money did you use? Use the bank's money. Brilliant, okay? But now you got this new problem. The new problem is the $9,000. So here's how your day-to-day is going to change using the method. The day-to-day changes in that no longer do you put your income into your checking account. You're going to put your income into your line of credit. And no longer do your expenses come out of the line of credit or the checking account. They're going to go on the credit card. And here's why. If you make $6,000 a month, and that paycheck goes in here, for those of you whose mind just went to, oh my God, I love my checking account, it's direct deposit, like what am I going to do? Don't panic, okay? It's not my first time. It's not my first time, okay? What's going to happen is, you have to understand, a line of credit in Canada has the same functionality as a checking account. You can do everything, okay? You got to tell the bank, or you're going to have to tell them, you're going to have to tell your employer, right? You get a little slip from the bank and you give it to your employer, and okay? It's easy. It's good. I lose people there, you know? I've done this enough times, I lose people. So what happens is $6,000 comes in here. Now let's imagine you're getting paid every 2 weeks. So $3,000 comes in here, and the balance goes from 9 to 6. And then 2 weeks later, another $3,000 comes in income and drops the balance to 3. So day one, balance is 9. For 2 weeks, the balance sits at 6. For another 2 weeks, it sits at 3. Okay, remember, this account charges interest on the average daily balance. So this is good. But we have expenses. And you're probably sitting there going, well, how can you just move all the expenses to credit card? It's likely that you can't. But you think about it. What percentage of your expenses could you pay by credit card if you focused on it? Maybe everything but the mortgage payment. Literally. Maybe a utility that you can't pay. Right, but pretty much everything can be paid by credit card today.
I don't use a debit card.
I don't use a debit card either. In fact, funny story that you say that, I went into a Subway. I was on the road doing a talk like this. I went into a Subway for dinner, had the guy make the whole sub, and then he asked me, told me the price. I pulled out my MasterCard, and he's like, We take cash only. I had to leave them with a fully made sub. Like I can't pay. I gotta go. I gotta go somewhere else. So you don't have to. You can get by. Trust me. I have nothing in my pocket right now except credit cards. Okay. Now, what's going to happen is, let's just say, to keep the page clean, let's say the $5,000 of expenses all goes on the credit card, so I can show you the concept. Okay. That's probably going to be like 4. Okay. But trust me when I tell you, the numbers are going to be. We're talking pennies. The difference. So you accrue all your expenses on your credit card. So your balance started at 9, it sat at 6 for 2 weeks, it sat at 3 for 2 weeks. It's now the last day of the month. You're going to go online, log into your bank account, and you're going to do a transfer from your line of credit to your credit card to pay it off in full. Okay, so it's at $5,000. You're going to pay it off in full. Your balance now goes back up to 8, 1,000 less than where you started, right? Because you made 6 and spent 5, yes? So you're now $1,000 less, and you got all the points for $5,000 worth of expenses, and you paid how much interest? 0. Okay, you pay no interest there. Here, the average daily balance for this month is going to be somewhere around $4,500. Let's call it 5,000, just to be even numbers. $5,000 times 6% annually, right? Simple interest. That's $300 a year. Okay, so that's less than $30 a month. Okay, so let's call it $30 a month, just to be safe. Okay, so if I offered you, in exchange for $30 a month or $300 a year, you'll save $29,000 here. Would you take the deal?
Yeah.
Of course you would, right? You would take the deal every day, twice on Sundays. You would take the deal. But it gets better than that, because what happened, okay, is that the very next mortgage payment you make the next month, remember, you're now at month 33 or 34. And what we learned down here was that every month about $1, $1.50 more of your payment goes to principal, less to interest. So in your very next mortgage payment, now you're paying $896, which is $35 less interest, more principal, which I can tell you, and I've run 1,000 of these scenarios, every time cancels out what you're paying on the line of credit. So the net effect is 0 interest here, 0 interest here, and lots of savings here. Get it? Okay? And that's the method. Now, I'll get questions in a minute, okay? Let's look at, that was 1 year. Let's look at if you did this over and over again. Now remember, the goal is to get from 9,000 to 0. And you do that inside of 9 to 12 months if you just keep going, right? 9,000 turns to 8, turns to 7, turns to 6. Now occasionally it's going to be like July and there's a wedding invitation you didn't count on, and you spend $200 for a gift, right? And your discretionary income isn't the same for that month. There's a buffer there of 25%. Not only that, as you're paying down this line of credit throughout the year, what if an unexpected expense comes? You still have the money available. It's a line of credit. You can take it back. So you get the net effect of the interest savings on the mortgage, and you go as fast as you can. The game is to get from 9 to 0. When you get to 0, you do the calculation again. How much money am I going to make more than I spend in the next 12 months? Less 25%, right? And transfer that amount from your line of credit to your mortgage and do it again. And the faster you go, the faster you go. And if life hits you in the face, punches you, right, kicks you, then you'll slow down. But you'll slow down and speed up. You won't fail. This is a more efficient way to do your banking, period. It can't fail. It's just better. It's just more efficient, okay? But you will slow down and speed up as life deals you windfalls and blows. That's just the way it works. Okay. So if you did this year in, year out, that $220,000, remember, was scheduled to be paid in 30 years. You would have paid almost $210,000 in interest. If you follow the method and you do this right, what will happen is the amortization will go from 30 to 12 and a half years. You'll be done. Okay? And the interest paid, and here's the really great part, the interest paid won't be $210,000. It'll be $76,679. You're still going to pay the bank interest. You are, but you're going to pay them the least amount possible. And that's at a rate of 5.15. It's going to be a lot less if it's rates of 2, right? 2.5. The savings is $135,000 roughly over 12 years, which, if you think about it, equates to almost $1,000 a month tax-free back in this family's pocket. Now, what family can use that, right? It's just better. Okay, and I say tax-free because you pay tax on the money you earn before you pay interest to your mortgage. So if you rescue $1 of interest from your mortgage, it's a tax-free dollar back in your pockets. Okay? All right. before I take questions, I'm just going to address what I call the elephant in the room, because I've done enough of these. The same questions keep coming up, right? So I'm going to get the most popular ones, and then if you didn't get yours answered yet, I'll take yours. Okay, here's how it goes. Okay, what happens if I lose my job, smart guy? then I won't be able to pay back my line of credit, and I'm screwed. Who's going to help me then? Okay, so this actually isn't a problem. It may feel like a problem, but the point is that if you lose your job, I can't prevent that. Okay, and if you lose your job and you don't have the income, the fear is, what do I do now? How do I, I can't pay this thing back anymore. But the question you have to ask yourself is, if that happened, would you rather, now that you know what you know about these accounts, would you rather owe 220 here or 211 here and 9 here until you get back on your feet? Okay, I'm not a magician, okay, and I'm not going to make all your troubles go away, but it's just a better place to be when you're down. Okay, so you don't really have to worry about it. In your example, you start with no balance on the line of credit and no balance on the credit card. Good one. But what about the rest of us normal people who have kids in debt? Okay. So I do start with a zero balance here and here. And I do it on purpose because this is like the starting line to being aggressive paying your mortgage down. If you have debt, you have a different problem. And you have to deal with that problem first. I spoke with a couple today. And this literally happens daily for me. Speak to a couple who owns 3 properties, wants to buy a 4th, is having a hard time getting financing because what they think the reason is because they don't have enough income to support the 4th property and get the financing. I probe a little bit and ask a little questions, and then I find out the couple owes $35,000 to a Visa. Okay? It's not income that's holding them back. It's the $35,000 debt on the Visa that the bank looks at and says, well, what's the minimum payment? And she says, well, they're only charging me X. And the bank says, no, for the purpose of your mortgage application, it's 3% of the balance, which is like another mortgage payment, basically. But the point is, imagine, okay, and I said to this person, so how much is the interest on your credit card? She said 19%. So I'd asked her she has 2 rental properties right now. I'd asked her, what's the cash flow on the 2 properties? She said $500. The interest on the credit card is $660 a month. Okay? So you got 2 properties, which make you feel good. It makes you feel great, right? You got these properties are cash flowing. That's what you tell yourself. Remember I said people focus on what they're making, not what they're not saving. Well, this $35,000 is a killer, right, in the financial plan of these people. And it'll just keep going. It'll keep trying. So you got to be responsible. You got to look at this the right way. Okay? The point is, you got to deal with the debts first. What I would suggest, if you looked at this and you said, I do have some debt. It's not egregious, but I have some debt. You might consider refinancing that debt into the mortgage, clearing the decks, and starting a new system with the new education that you have now, that you didn't have before. I wouldn't have advised that before because that's like being on a treadmill. I put the money into the mortgage, and then I feel good, and then I go make the same mistakes, and then I refinance into the mortgage, and then I feel good, and then I make the same mistakes. Hopefully, if you did that now, you would be better equipped not to make the same mistakes again. Okay, I don't know you well enough, so I'm not sure I trust you yet. Is there a baby step approach? Totally, you can go whatever pace you want. So, you do the calculations, you find out, I could put $9,000 a year into from the line of credit to the mortgage, but I don't know if I trust Chris so much. Okay, so what you're gonna do is maybe you look at, I'm gonna try this kind of like a 3-month test. So you know that it's $750 a month is your discretionary income. Multiply by 3, you get $2,250. Borrow $2,250, put it to your mortgage, spend 3 months paying that down to 0. If it works, maybe next time you take a 6-month chunk. The next month a 9-month chunk. The next time a 12-month chunk. However you want to do it. You want to just test it with 1 month and see if it works? By all means, do it. Take it whatever pace you want, okay? They say, often when the ship hits the harbor, it's not the harbor's fault. It's true. Take responsibility for it. If I do this, won't I have to pay a penalty on my mortgage to make the extra payment from my line of credit? So it's a popular question. Most mortgages today have a prepayment privilege of 15 or 20%. If you own properties, you probably know that. There are some banks like RBC who they do have some mortgage products that are 10%. But even 10% is likely enough to run the method. This family, $220,000 mortgage, right? What they're capable of without making more spending is $9,000 a year, which is less than 5%. If you have a mortgage that has a restriction of prepayment that is less than 5%, I can tell you exactly why. It's because the only thing you thought about when you went to get your mortgage was the lowest possible rate, and some bank knew it, and they offered you a lower rate than everybody else, and they put you in mortgage jail. That's what happens. Be careful when you chase the lowest rate. There's the lowest possible rate, and then there's like a coffee more a month gets you like flexibility. Because here's the thing, we all sign 5-year deals, and most of us move after 3, or sell after 3, or do something different with the mortgage. You gotta be smart, okay? Look at the numbers. Look at the whole picture, not just the lowest possible rate. It's a setup. The lowest rate is a setup, total setup. Isn't this the same as just me making $750 lump sum payments to my mortgage every month? Close. You'll still get better results with the method because of the time value of money, because you're actually being able to use the bank's money before you earn it. But if you are the 10% that would make the $750 payment every month and you have that discipline, congratulations. You can keep doing what you're doing. You might get a little more benefit here, but it will be marginal. But for most people, that's not the case. This is all great, Chris, assuming you make $750 more than you spend every month. What if I only make $100 more than I spend every month? Great story for you. When I first started doing this presentation, one morning after I had done the presentation, I got a call from a woman who's a single mother of 3 kids. And she said, Chris, I gotta tell you, it was really bittersweet. I was getting excited through the presentation, then I realized I only make $100 more than I spend every month. And so, what does this look like for me? And my heart sunk because I actually thought I set her up. Like, that's how I felt. And that wasn't the intention, but I still felt like I had really kind of created a false sense of comfort for somebody like her. And then I went to work looking at the numbers, as I do. And here's what I realized. If you only had $100 of discretionary money, that would mean that instead of this being $9,000, it would be $900. Okay? So a year. $1,200 a year minus 25%, $900. You made a $900 lump sum payment to this mortgage. In the first year, it would save you $53,000 and 6 years over the life of the mortgage. So it would shrink the mortgage from 30 to 24 years, and you would save $53,000 in interest. Not bad, yes? Pretty good. What you'll notice here is if you were to go at the $200,000 pace, so this would be $1,800 a year, you'd save $70,000 and 2 more years. So the point is, that first 100 is the most powerful. Every 100 after that, there's less to save, so there's less savings. Does it make sense? What's really cool about this, okay, so it was great for me to be able to go back to this person and say, hey, guess what? The first 100 is really powerful. Like, I didn't know it, but now I do. Thank you for the call, and I hope you feel better. And she did. And 6 months later, she called me back, and she said, Chris, you know what was really powerful about this for me? Was I learned, once you did the numbers for me, that I didn't need to get ahead by getting another job. I just needed to pick up another shift. So what she figured out was that if I made another $100 a month, I could go to the next level. And here's the best part for people who do have 1,000. Maybe you have 2,000. Maybe you have 3,000. You can sleep at night knowing that you don't have to go at the $1,000 pace. You can look at a chart like this, which is easy for us to create, and we can look at it and go, you know what? I know that if I put $1,000, like if I use $1,000 in the system, $12,000 a year, I would be done in 12 and a half years and save $134,000. But I'm okay at the $700 mark with 15 years of savings and $119,000 and have $300 of cash flow every month that I can do with what I want guilt-free, because now I'm really efficiently managing that mortgage and I don't have to worry when I go to bed at night. I feel good. Does that make sense? So you see how you can take charge? You can be in total control. And it's really powerful. Okay, any questions I didn't get? Because I have more. Yeah.
How does an unsecured line of credit compare to a home equity line of credit in terms of interest accruing?
I've been doing this for 10 years. Still haven't figured out how to answer this question. Comes every time in a way that will make tremendous sense to you. Here, I would have to show it to you on paper, but I'm going to do my best. A home equity line of credit takes away the leverageability of this account to this account. You see, these are separate accounts. When you have a home equity line of credit, it's part of your mortgage. So you can't transfer money from one to the other. You lose it. This is a discipline feature. Why it's important is because when you move this money to the mortgage, you can't get it back. Okay, you have to deal here. This is where you have to manage here now. Unless you come to a guy like me and say, I want to pay to refinance my mortgage, I'll pay the penalty, I want my money back. So it's a disciplinary feature. Now, with a line of credit, if you had the discipline yourself, you wouldn't need this system, you just get a line of credit and pay it down as you go. But the threat is that you only have to pay interest only. The obligation is interest only, which is a smaller payment. And if you get into the pattern of just paying interest, you'll never build the equity. So there's danger there. But they're different. Home equity lines of credit typically are aggressive than a mortgage, but they feel better because you don't have to make a big payment. You don't have to pay principal. You're paying interest, you're just not paying principal unless you want. The difficult question to answer, and to understand, but if that was you, right, and you wanted to investigate it, we could talk after and I could break it down for you with your circumstances. It's the best I can do. Yes?
Yeah, so I guess the only thing I don't understand, so are you giving the $9,000 credit at the beginning of the year? How are you paying it?
Yeah, it's once a year.
So you can arrange that with your bank and say, I'm going to pay for.
Yeah, so you don't have to involve your bank at all, okay? And it's important that you all understand, this mortgage could come from TD, your line of credit could come from RBC, and your credit card could come from Capital One. It doesn't matter. It's completely flexible. You're going to manage this yourself, and when you get the mortgage, you're going to do that calculation. I'll show you what the calculation is. And so if you want to take a picture of that, you can, or anybody wants to get that. But it's monthly income, less monthly expenses, annual, right? Less a quarter times 12 months. Sorry, monthly income, forget that I said annual. Monthly income less monthly expenses, so 6,000 less 5, minus 25% times 12 months, so 750 times 12 equals 9,000. That is what you could pay to your mortgage this year from the line of credit without earning more money or spending less throughout the year.
So if I just pay it to my mortgage?
You just need to you have to do a budget, right?
Which I do.
Right.
I know this these numbers. I just didn't know you could just pay the bank.
Go online, transfer from line of credit to mortgage. It's remarkably simple. Yeah.
Call please for second step.
Yeah. Yeah, you can call me and I'll just tell you to get online, transfer from line of credit to mortgage. It's that simple. Yeah. I know, it's like, if only I was shown this way back when, yeah.
So I guess I don't understand why you wouldn't do it even if you had debt, because I mean, you have to pay that debt anyways, so.
So when you have debt, so let's say for example, you already have a $5,000 balance on your line of credit.
Okay.
And now you borrow 9 more, now you have 14. How long will it take you to pay 14 back? What you should do is pay the 5 first, then start the system. It might take you 6 months, right? So you just tack that on to the beginning. So you look at it and you go, okay, well, my numbers say $750 a month. So now I'm going to break my $5,000 debt down into $750 payments. That'll take me 6 months, 7 months. And then I'm going to start the system. Debt goes first. Now, if you keep the debt, all it means is you're going to be paying on the debt. So it's going to reduce your savings. That's the answer to your question. Right? It's going to, you understand?
I do.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you want to clear the deck if you can. And there's a couple different ways to do it. Over time or through a refinance. Yes. And June, 1 second.
Yeah, Chris, so you're saying the banks study us.
Yeah.
So how do you think the banks can use this, take this whole approach and use it against us too?
We'll kill it?
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll never try and they never have to. You know, it's a question that was asked early on when I was doing this and I didn't have an answer, and then I really started thinking about it.
Yeah.
The fact is that if you pay your mortgage back sooner, what does the bank do with the money? They lend it out to some chump who never saw this, right? And mortgages are front-end loaded with interest, which means they charge more interest on day 1 than they do, year 5. So the point is that it's great for them to pay, you to pay it back early, right, in year 5, year 10, and then they give it to somebody brand new on day 1, and they make more money. Bank always wins. You can only minimize the damage. You can't, right? But they're providing you a service, right? Allowing you to buy the property with 5% or 20% down, right? Sorry, Liz.
So if you have different banks, for example, your line of credit with another bank, how do you do it online though? Because it's 2 different banks.
It's a positive problem.
Okay. So
Say
you
the
have-
question.
She said, if you have your accounts at different banks, how do you do your transfers and whatnot? I said, it's a positive problem. You will figure that out. It's funny. Has anybody seen the movie The Martian? Everybody, anyone saw The Martian? There's a scene at the end of the movie where he's talking to, I won't give anything away, where he's talking to, Matt Damon is talking to some astronauts who are students. They want to become astronauts. And one of them says, when you're in space, do you ever worry about dying? And he goes, every day. And he says, how do you deal with that? He says, the only way to deal with it is that you have to solve one problem, and then solve another, and then solve another. And if you solve enough problems, you might get to come home. Yeah. Okay? You gotta solve problems. These are solvable. Okay? You had a question.
Question. I saw there are accounts like from different institutions, which is mortgage and your saving account in one thing.
Manulife.
Yeah, Manulife. I think it's account one or something.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something to
So-
consider for like mortals or?
So the advantage of doing that, how they market it, is that by putting your income into that account and all your debts into that one account, every time your income goes in there, you're reducing the balance for a period of time, so you're accruing less interest. The problem I see with it is that you also have nowhere else to take money from but that one account. So as much as you're putting it in to save money, you're also taking it out to spend money, and which counteracts the savings. So the answer to your question is, if bi-weekly payments would save you this much money, an account like that might save you this much, and the method will save you this much. Yes?
So I've seen this presentation
Yes.
before. More than
Yes.
once.
Is it better now?
It's, yeah, I mean, it's great. But, and I did do it for a while, but where things got a little messy for me was with, personal and rental
Yes.
expenses. So what is your formula for that?
You should always run the method on your primary residence. And there's some key reasons why. First of all, it's cleaner to do it just on one, okay, because you don't have several wallets. But the point is think globally. So think of all your properties as having global income and global expenses. If you add up all the income that comes from all your properties and all the expenses, property taxes, mortgage, everything that goes with them, and you run it kind of like a corporation would. So your primary residence, the reason why we like to build equity there is because you can remove equity from your primary residence and then get a tax deduction when you invest that money for the interest you're going to pay. In addition, it doesn't pay, really, as a real estate investor, to pay the mortgages down on your properties that are income properties. It's actually better to keep your mortgages at a reasonable level so that you're paying less tax on the income you're bringing in from those properties. I'm not a property investor, but that's how I look at
So you're
it.
saying you're just to apply it only to
Yeah.
your primary.
So if you think
And so any
globally,
income you get from anywhere else, don't apply?
well, it is going all to the same place, right? I mean, all your income, whether it comes from property 1, 2, or 3, it's yours. And all your mortgage payments, you got to pay them. So really, if you think about it that way, and often the way we think changes the way we act, gives us different results. It's just the way you think. So think about it globally. It's all income and expenses. And what's the difference at the end of the day? And I know you well enough to know that you're detail-oriented. So you probably have all this data. You know what your global income and expenses are. You just may have it segmented. So put it all together and you'll find it to be easier, right? Just look at what's coming in and what's going out. What's the difference? Multiply by 12, subtract 25%, and you'll get your amount to transfer each year on your primary residence. Yes?
Building on what you just said, in my thinking, I've always looked at it that my primary residence, I
Yeah.
want that paid off as fast
Yeah.
as possible because that's tax-free money to me.
Yeah.
I can always get lines of credit against it or whatever for more investing.
Yeah.
But my rental properties, that interest paying it, I can write it off. And you can't bring them all down at once, so yeah, pick your primary because it's going to be your best one.
Yeah, and I also think
Best benefit.
the other paradigm shift that you should maybe have in your mind is to not think about paying the mortgage off. Think about building equity. That's what we're trying to do. You're paying money into this thing every month. You want as much of it to become yours. That's why you wait for appreciation and so on. You want that equity, and you want it to be accessible. And in a second, I'm going to show you what I do with money to make money, if you're interested. Okay, and it's what I do. It's not what everybody's going to do. It's what I do, and I'll show it to you in a second. But if you don't have the equity, you don't have anything to invest. So you got to be building equity and accessing the equity. You had a question?
Once you implement this program, what do you do with your checking and savings account? Like, are they just closed, they're gone, and that's it?
Going president's choice because it's free.
It's free.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I hear you loud and clear. It's like a safety blanket. Like it feels like I've had this blanket my whole life. What am I going to do with it? Well, just leave it alone. You know, it's not a big deal. Okay. So, money made easy. How do you invest in real estate without being a landlord? Okay. How many of you like being a landlord? Okay.
Jump in, Joey, now.
Okay. When I went looking for investments, so I started getting into investments. I started thinking that like if I was looking for a mate. Okay, so if I was wanting to date my investment, what would it look like? What would the perfect investment look like? And I made a list. Okay. So number one, collateral. If things don't go as planned, is there recourse to get my investment capital back? That had to be there. Okay, so I didn't want to be in an investment that had no security, no collateral, no, you know, but also meant I wasn't going to be able to shoot for the stars. Right, because you put money in the stock market, for example, you have no security, but you might hit a bid. Right, so I had to give and take. So I decided it was more important to have collateral than not have collateral. Then predictability. Does the investment pay me a fixed rate of return, or is the return variable dependent on the market? And this is where mortgage brokering came in, because I looked at the fixed and variable rates. I said, what benefits the bank? A fixed or a variable rate? If you're a bank, what do you prefer? To sell a fixed rate or a variable rate?
Fixed.
Fixed. Why? 5-year balance sheet. I know exactly what's coming in, right? I got all these suckers on fixed rates. Now, fixed rates right now are a brilliant choice. I don't want to get you wrong, but the atypical times. To secure your mortgage at 5 years at 2.5 is a win-win right now, okay? But I want, as an investor, so thinking like a lender, not as a borrower, thinking like a lender, I want fixed rate because I want predictability. It's very important to me. So that's what I went looking for. Are there costs associated with participating? It always made me shiver. You know, the idea of paying for the right to invest in you or your company or your business, it makes no sense. Every form of investing is lending. Would you agree? So if you put money in the stock market, you are lending money to a company who's going to do something with it. Now, you don't know if the CEO has marital problems or a drug habit, or you don't know for the most part. But you lend the money and you hope to get a return. Well, for me, I wanted no cost. I was refusing to pay a fee. So the idea of paying somebody a fee to invest my money made no sense to me. Can I participate in the investment with cash only, or can I use registered funds? So versatility, right? So I wanted to be able to take advantage of the systems that are there to help me take advantage of them, like TFSA, like RRSPs, things like this. If I could leverage them, right, but the investment I chose wasn't eligible, well, that would suck. So I wanted to find versatile investment. Is the investment easy to understand, easy to get involved in, and easy to manage? How many have ever been in an investment that's complex, hard to understand, and you feel like you're gambling every second because you don't really get it, right? It happens to people all the time. When I ask people what they're invested in, the most popular answer people give me is the mutual fund. Okay? It's a $1 trillion industry in Canada. When I ask people what mutual funds they're invested in, they say things like TD.
Yeah.
Okay? And the reason they say TD is because they really don't want to go any deeper than that, because they don't really know. They're in a bunch of funds, but they don't really know. Now, I'm not here to slag mutual funds. Some people have done extremely well in the stock market, extremely well in mutual funds. My philosophy on it is this. If you're going to be in the stock market, you need to be managing it yourself, because you need to know when to get in and when to get out. That's how you make money in the stock market. That's what little I know. I could be totally off base. So you know, if you're a stock guy, you probably know a lot more than I do. It's just my feeling. It's like me going into the mechanic's office. I feel vulnerable because I don't really understand it. Can I diversify my holdings within this investment category? Here's the thing. If you find an investment that's doing exactly what you want it to do you want to need to find another one? Or do you just want to stick in that one? Right? Like, the reason people throw mud at the wall, like, to remember you're telling me this afternoon about this guy who has like 15 businesses?
Yes.
the first thought that went through my head when you told me this guy has 15 businesses, I was like, none of them are good. Right? Well, because I'm like, if he had one business that was killing it, you would just do that. Because what's the purpose of a business? It's to serve your life. If it's serving my life, I'm good. That's what I want. If it's not serving my life, open another one and hope that that one does better. So the point is, can I diversify inside the investment? If it's a winner, I want to be able to do lots of it and diversify inside of it. I don't have to master more than one. I don't want to be the jack of all trades. Okay, and is the annual return on investment greater than 6% per year? I was at a, where I got that number 6 from, I had this like idea. It was spur of the moment. I was speaking to a group of Canada's special forces, okay, in Petawawa, okay? Really strange crowd, okay? Very serious, just enough off, right, to be in special forces. And we had a great meeting, but it came to me in the middle of it. I wanted to make the point of like, what do people actually want for return on investment? So I said, if all of you put all of your investable money into an investment, and a number would X have to be for you to be happy? And I said, how about 10%? And everybody was like, yep, totally happy, I'm good. 10. Okay, well, how many would take 9? And everyone was like, well, it's not as good as 10, but I'll take it, right? Like, and then I dropped down to 8 and then 7. At 6, some hands started going down. And then 5, we didn't need to go any further. People were upset. But the fact is, not many people are making 5, 6, 7, 8 consistently every year. So I wanted to make sure that investments that I participate in make a consistent, healthy return. So when I went looking for this girl, right, how many of her do you think I found? Not many, okay? I found 1. Mortgages. Yeah, because mortgages, and there's a reason why banks do them. Because we have a default rate in Canada in mortgages of 0.005%, okay? 1/2 of 1%. That's the average default rate for mortgages in Canada. You may not have thought that before now, but that's the reality. Google it, you'll find out it's the truth. Okay, so I go looking for this, and then I have to look at more than just mortgages to feel good that I'm accurate in what I'm thinking. So this is the chart I created, and I obviously created a prettier version for you to look at. But if you go through, the left-hand column is the 7 things that were on the last slide. Okay, and then we start with bonds and GICs. Maybe the most, like the safest, right? The place you can be if you just want to be safe. You look at collateral, yes. Predictability, yes. Costs, none. Versatility, low. You don't really have too much versatility. It's like GIC or it's not, right? Simple, yes. Extremely. Walk into the bank, put your money in, leave. Come back and get it in a year and it'll have 1.5%. Okay? Diversity, not really. Although you could argue that I can be in multiple GICs. I'm sure you could. Okay? And ROI very low. Step up to stocks, mutual funds. Well, here's the profile. No collateral, no predictability, very volatile, up, down, can be great, can be not so great. Costs, yes, there's costs. Right? You got to pay an advisor, or you got to pay for trades, or there's costs associated, don't like that. And I think the costs are high relative to the return. Versatility, yes, very high versatility. You can get in and out today, tomorrow, the next day. But here's my view on it. If I find an investment that's paying me, I don't want to get out. I just want to stay in, right? It works. Because if you're out there making money every day, and I have about 300 investors, okay? Most of them are high-ranking executives at companies. They do very well making money. It's making their money make money. That's the challenge. And they'll all freely admit it, say, we don't have the time. I'm a vice president of a company. I work 80 hours a week. Like, I want my money to just make a steady income. And so we don't have necessarily the time to do it, okay? So stocks, mutual funds, complex? Yeah, they are. I mean, unless you study it, and you're that guy who's studying it all the time, or girl, it's complex. And even for those people, it's complex. It's like insurance, right? Yeah, have you ever had an insurance person come to your house and sit there and talk your ear off about insurance, and you walk in and you're like, I'm not sure if I know less or more than when you first came, right? It's difficult. Diversity, yes, absolutely, very diverse. And the variable return. Okay, so the ROI, it's not high, it's not low, it could be anything. It could be big or small. Then you're real estate. So a lot of you, real estate investors. we have a lot in common, mortgage investors and real estate investors. In fact, I think it would be really great if every real estate investor had some mortgages in their portfolio. I really do. Like, it'd be a great balance point. I'm not here to say don't do what I did and sell all your properties. I remember, I control all the mortgages. I do the due diligence on all my mortgages. I have a greater level of security because of that. I do it for my investors as well. We do it for, a lot of people, and we make them a lot of money. But it is different for me. I feel very comfortable not owning any real estate right now. You may not, and that's okay. But this could be a great balance point, okay, mortgages. Because real estate is similar, but look at the difference. Collateral, yes. Predictability, no. Now, I could easily make the argument that it's very predictable. Over the long haul, real estate is pretty predictable. It's not like this, but it's like this, right? It may have its little dips, but it tends to always come back. So you could argue the no could be a maybe. Costs? Yes. I found owning real estate had a lot of costs associated with, and some surprise ones that I didn't like, okay, relative to what I get in mortgages. So that's why I put it there as, yes, a high cost. Versatility? Yes, very versatile. You can buy and sell anytime you want, and so on. There's a process there, maybe some cost, but you can do it. Simplicity? I would say being a real estate owner is simple. Being a real estate investor is complex. Okay, that would be my argument. You could take issue with me on that. In fact, you could take issue with me on all of it. But this is where I'm coming from. Diversity, yes. Variable returns. Okay, it can be high, it can be low. Mortgages. Collateral, yes. Predictability, yes. Costs, none. The borrower pays all the costs. Legal fees, my fee if I'm brokering the deal. The borrower pays everything. If I say your return is 10, your return is 10. Not 10, less, 10. Okay? If it's 8, it's 8. If it's 9, it's 9. Versatility, yes. Simplicity, extremely simple. Why I say it's extremely simple is because you've all been borrowers. We all know what it's like to be borrowers, and it takes a borrower and a lender to make a mortgage transaction. It's really easy. You borrow money, that puts a lien on your house. Pay the money back, he removes the lien from the house. You don't pay him, he gets a judge to make an order that says he can have the power to sell your property and get his money back. That's how it works. It's that simple. It's a very simple process, simpler than you might think. I will put the caveat on that it takes a broker to put a deal together for you to lend money, and if you have a poor broker, it will be a nightmare. It will. And that's not a plug for me. I'm just telling you, it is the reality. You need to do due diligence. You need to find competent brokers because they get paid fees, whether the mortgage blows up or not. So, again, whose interest? Whose interest, right? Their interest. A lot of times just to get a fee. So you gotta be careful. Okay, diversity, yes, you can diversify in mortgages. So brilliant. You could take $100,000, split it into 3 or 4 pieces, and put a mortgage here, a mortgage there, a mortgage here. Not only that, you could do it in different marketplaces. So you could have a mortgage in Toronto, a mortgage in Calgary, a mortgage in Winnipeg. You could have mortgages of different terms. You could have a 1-year term, a 2-year term, a 3-year term. You can have all these different layers to create diversity inside your portfolio. And mortgages are very much a set it and forget it type investment. Just sit there, collect a check. In fact, the mortgages now that we do, your payments are direct deposit right into your bank account. It's pretty impressive. Okay, and the ROI is high. You're looking at a minimum, so I just give you our own numbers, so I can't speak for anybody else. Over 10 years, we have lent more than $20 million on behalf of investors. The minimum return anyone has ever gotten is 8%. Nobody's ever lost a dime of money. It's not to say that it can't happen. There are risks. It can happen. It hasn't yet. We haven't had a power of sale. We haven't had a loss of money. And it's only, I think, because of the way we do due diligence, which is a process. If you want to get involved in mortgages with us, it's going to be a heap of paperwork. We'll walk you through it all, but there's a lot of due diligence. We haven't had any negative results. That doesn't mean we haven't had challenges. We have. We've had borrowers who late on a payment. We've had borrowers who comes to the maturity and we don't really want to renew the mortgage, but they really do. And we give them a little bit of time to work it out. And I'll tell you, a lien on a property is a very powerful motivator. And every single time, the borrower has been able to secure other financing to take us out. So, if you were a poker player, anybody ever played poker? Does everybody understand what it means to say there's a lot of outs? When I say there's a lot of outs, Do you know what that means? What it means is, if you're in a bad position, there's a lot of ways that it can work itself out. In mortgages, you have that. There are a lot of ways. You can sell a property, you can refinance a property, you can change the dynamics of the agreement. There's no reason for you not to get paid. There's no reason really for you to lose your money if it's done right. And that's been our track record. So that's why I think mortgages are so powerful. Let's look at the long game. Now, mortgages are a long game play. Okay? They are not the hare, they are the tortoise. They are consistent, not volatile. They are predictable, not unpredictable. You're going to make 8, 9, maybe 10, but you're not going to make 20, and you're not going to make 15. You're going to make 8, 9, or 10. Okay? So it's the long game. Now, why is the long game powerful? Well, I did this little, as you can see, I'm a very social person. I do these silly little experiments at home. My wife loves it. I sit there and I'm like, don't talk to me, I'm figuring something out. It's going to be really powerful. If you put $100 away for your kid every month from the time they're born to the time they're 21. My parents did not do this for me, but if you did it, they would have $21,600, not invested, just put away in savings. They'd have $21,600 at age 21. If then they took the ball and ran with it, got a job, I know this doesn't always happen for 21-year-olds, but got a job and then started to put $100 a week away until age 38, they would have $110,000. If from age 38 to 65 in retirement, they earned 8% per year, had it in mortgages, spread out all over the place, making 8% per year, they would have $686,000 at age 65, which, continuing to pay an 8% return in retirement, would create a pension of $55,000 a year. It's not bad, it's very simple math, okay? But that's the merits of the long game. Now some of you might be thinking, well, I'm 40 now, and I don't have the 110,000, the 21.6, and my parents didn't do it for me, I didn't do it for myself, and so what do I do then? Well, here's where equity in your properties can really become powerful. You know that of all the equity in all the real estate in Canada, what percentage of all of that real estate do you think is owned by the Canadian consumer? And what percentage do you think is owned by the banks?
50-50?
50-50. Who agrees? What do you think? 30 owned by the consumers, 70 owned by the banks. How many think that's closer to the reality? Yes? It is opposite. 67% of all the equity in Canada in real estate is owned by the consumer. Only 33% is owned by the banks. But every dime of the 33% owned by the banks earns money every single day in interest. The 67% makes us feel safe. That's what it does. Now, by no means am I saying, and you're not allowed anyways, to take all the equity out of your property and lend it to somebody else. But what I am saying is, what if you went to 75%? What if you owned 50% of your property and you had this 25% of the value of that property that could come out of your house and be lent to somebody else, put a lien on their property, and make 8% interest on it? How much faster would you be building wealth? And if you did that, and then did what you learned in the first half of the presentation to build equity on your house, how much faster do you think you'd get ahead? It would be astronomical. It would get you ahead faster than you think, okay? But you have to do the numbers, you have to invest the time. Time and money are our two biggest assets, and my perspective is that we don't spend enough time understanding our money. If you did, you would know what I know. Now, I maybe took it a little bit too far by selling everything and investing all my equity. But again, I'm at the driver's seat. I run the brokerage. So I have that a little bit, it's my day-to-day. It is my job. It's what I do every day. I protect investors' money by evaluating lent borrowers. And there's no shortage of borrowers. Would you agree? You know what the best thing about being a lender is? If 10 people come to my office today and want to borrow money, and I say no to all 10, 10 more come tomorrow. We decline 97% of applications to borrow money for second mortgages. Okay? 3% get approved, and those 3 pay. Over the last 10 years they have paid. Okay? Because there are circumstances that make sense and circumstances that don't, and all you need is somebody looking out for your best interest to make sure you're getting in the right spots. Okay, so what did we do? Well, over the last few years, I was frustrated trying to teach this to other people, the merits of lending. And it was hard to teach mortgages. So what I did was I decided we needed to create products to show people to commoditize lending so that you could understand how you could lend and what the benefits were with each type of money. Okay, and there's 3 basic types of money. There's RSPs, there's TFSAs, and there's equity in your home or cash. And each should be treated differently when lending. For example, if I'm lending RSPs, okay, I would love to lend my RSPs to somebody for 5 years at a time. Because I can't use the money anyways. I'm 40. For the next 25 years, it needs to go somewhere. I don't want to redo it every year. I'd rather give it to someone for 5 years. If I'm lending cash and I want to create an income off the cash, I probably want to have the liquidity option of knowing that the term is going to end every 2 years or every 3. So I get my payments every month or every quarter, but I can get out of the investment and change directions in a shorter period of time. You understand where I'm going? And TFSA is somewhere in the middle because it's like, it's registered, it's tax-free, but it also could be treated like cash. So we treat the different types of money differently. I want to show you each of the 3 types. Check this out. So we created a product called RSP Perform just to make it easier for you to compartmentalize the different types of money you might have and the advantages that you can take advantage. Do you know that the average Canadian has $30,000 of unused RSP room? Okay, that's the stat. Now, if you have $30,000 of unused RSP room and you met a guy like me and you said, Chris, I saw this thing, I want to do this investing thing, what's the best thing to do? I would say, okay, first of all, let's refinance the mortgage. Let's take $30,000 out of the house and use up your unused RSP room. The $30,000, if you're in a 30% tax bracket, will get you a $9,000 tax refund this year, and then you're going to make 8% on the $30,000. Is that better than it sitting in your house? Yes, absolutely. Especially when I tell you that with our brokerage anyways, if you refinance your property to take money out to invest in a mortgage, we pay the closing costs. So it doesn't cost you anything. You just pay the additional couple dollars a month for the $30,000 you added to your mortgage. If you did that, your return on investment on that $30,000 would be close to 36% in the first year because of the tax refund. So treating RSP money according to the CRA rules really helps you in the beginning to make use of that unused RSP room and then create legitimacy over time. If you invest the RSPs properly in mortgages, you're likely going to make 9% per year on average, fixed. That's going to double your money every 8 years. 8.5 years, somewhere in there, because you have a different compounding effect. It's not an annual compounding. I don't want to get into that, but it's going to double your money every 8 to 9 years. I'm 40 to 67 is 27 years. That's every 9 years is going to double 3 times. If I had $100,000 of RSPs, it would be 100 turned into 2, turned into 4, turned into 8 by retirement. Set it and forget it. That's how you treat RSP money. Let's say, for example, you are sitting on equity in your house but don't have a TFSA, and neither does your wife or your husband, okay? And you wanted to create, you were thinking about doing RESPs for your kids. We use Head Start, okay, as a way to supplement an RESP, to be a little bit different, a little bit more flexible, and a lot more money. And here's how it works. If you were to take equity out of your house and start a TFSA account, $41,000 is the maximum you can put in your TFSA account today. And everything you make from it is tax-free. We want to take advantage of that. Similar to the system you saw me teach at the beginning, I'm all about loopholes. Stay in bounds, stay on the field, right? Don't be out of bounds, don't be cheating. Stay in bounds, but fill the loophole in. So you take your $41,000, imagine this, okay? $41,000, you just had a child. Now, this came from me when I first had our child. And I was thinking about how we're going to save for her future. I wanted to give her a head start in life, because I never had one, okay? My parents are great. I had 5 kids, 1 income. They did what they could do. But I just want to give my daughter something better, and I'm sure some of you do too. You take $41,000, you put it in a TFSA. You invest it at 9% interest for 18 years, okay? Now, you're not committed to 18 years, but let's say it runs 18 years. That 41 will turn into $149,000. What's really cool about that is then at age 18, I could give my daughter $100,000 and take back my 41, right? I can give her a $100,000 head start, and here's the beauty of it. I don't need the government to match. I don't have to, she doesn't have to use it for school. She could use it for a wedding, a house, a car, whatever she needs. God knows, does anybody know what the world's gonna look like in 18 years? I have no clue. So all I can do is put cash there for her. So she has tax-free money she can use for whatever she needs. If we have another child, I can split the 100 grand in two, right? It doesn't have to be for one kid. They don't have to go to school to get the money. All the rest of it is totally flexible. So we created Head Start to use for TFSA. Now I bet if you thought about it, you could figure out how to use your TFSA for whatever you wanted to use it for, using the same formula. There's no restrictions. But the point is, if you had, let's say, $100,000 of equity in your house, and you took it out, and you put $41,000 into a TFSA and let that ride, making tax-free money, and you took $30,000 and used up your unused RSP room and got the tax refund, and then you took the difference, which is maybe $30,000 in cash, and invested it, you would be doing so much better than just the average investment of, say, 8%. You're compounding your returns by using the rule. Smart equity. By leveraging the equity. Now, if you're doing the method, which I was showing before, and you're building 4 to 5 times the amount of equity, and every 3 to 5 years, you're taking that equity that you built out and lending it to someone, securitizing it on a property, right, where the property is of greater value than the investment, what's going to happen is, as your mortgage is staying about here, it's going to come down and go back up, come down and go back up, come down and go back up. You're building this nest egg of wealth that's lent out in someone else. At some point within 7, 8, 9 years, what's going to happen is this amount is going to equal or surpass this amount. Meaning what you have lent in the market is going to exceed what you've borrowed in the market. Meaning at any time, if you want to cash out, you can take back what you lent and pay off what you owe. That's a brilliant feeling. And if you can get that at 45, 50, 55 years old, how much better does your retirement look at that point? So the idea is to be smart. Now, each person is going to have different financial circumstances. If what I'm saying has turned you on at all, then what you're going to want to do is talk about it. Because every person has different financial circumstances. And we, my wife and I, have decided not to try and build an empire. Okay, the company's name is Magnetic. We've decided to be an intimate boutique type brokerage that serves people and takes the time. If you ask any one of our clients, what you'll find out is that each one of them feels like I could call them and ask them to go out for dinner and talk about their investments. So at the end of the day, we're just putting time into people, because I can go to Florida with my family if you understand your money. So we teach. So we don't just do, we teach. And when we teach, we get to a place where you say, okay, I'm ready to do, and we do for you while you're working. But we don't do for you with your eyes closed. Your eyes are open. You know exactly what's going on. You know exactly what the plan is. And the beauty is the plan can be adjusted at any time. So it doesn't have to be, you're never locked into something. You might lend your money to somebody for a year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. As long as it's paying, that's what you started it for. As long as the payments are coming, you're happy. But if you want to change gears, there's a way to change gears. You're never really stuck. There's no penalties and so on and so forth. It's a different world altogether. So we're almost done. How does Magnetic help you? Well, mortgages allow you to reach your investment goals sooner. We just make it easier to do. My job day to day is to look for opportunities for you to lend. Okay? Now, obviously we broker mortgages for people who are buying properties. So you may say, I don't know about the lending stuff, Chris, but if I needed a mortgage for one of my properties, I would feel comfortable because I think you know what you're doing. Fair. You can call us, reach out to us, email us, whatever. We'll take care of you the same way. But what we do is we make it easier to get where you're going sooner. That's it. It's that simple. Okay? There's video available, like I said, if you want to see more of what we do. There's video on YouTube. You just Google, put my name into YouTube, and there'll be more of this up there. But it's simple. It's what we do. Okay? The elephant in the room on the lending side. It's important. You kind of make this sound too easy, too good to be true almost. Why isn't everyone doing it? I can tell you this, what I've learned over 10 years is that the wealthiest people out there do it. And they don't talk about it. They really don't. I mean, like, it's amazing how many people I've met. I'm like, you should really lend. And they're like, I have been for 15 years. That's why I own a yacht. They're like, It really is, it's like a secret world, this lending space. We lend primarily to builders and developers, okay, with track records of success, so we know they've done it before, and we lend in markets where there's a lot of data, so we can evaluate whether, if you're building a subdivision in this neighborhood, is it likely to sell? That's the criteria we use. We typically don't lend as much to residential borrowers, people who couldn't get financing from a bank, or have credit problems, or have debt, or so on. That's not how we have the perfect record we do. We lend to builders and developers you would know the names of, people that you could do your own research on and find out that they have a long track record of success. It's remarkably simple. So if I'm making it sound too easy, it's only because you're just hearing about it now and you just don't know. You may have a ton of questions, they can all get answered and should before you do anything, but the point is it's not difficult. It's not. And I'm glad it's not. What criteria do you use to evaluate borrowers on our behalf? So as I was touching on before, really important, we look for a defined exit strategy, which means if you're going to borrow money, how are you going to pay it back? Not how are you going to pay interest, because you can probably pay interest the rest of your life, right? If I'm going to lend you $50,000, I'm going to charge you 10% interest, you're going to pay me $5,000 a year, it's about $400 and change a month, you can probably pay that for a long, long, long time. But at some point I'm going to want my money back. How are you going to do that? Where are you going to be able to get the $50,000 that you probably spent, right, when I lent it to you, to pay me back? Rather, we lend to builders who have a defined strategy. Here's what it is. I'm going to take the money, I'm going to build this subdivision, sell the units, and when everybody closes on them, I'm going to pay you back. It's going to take 3 years. That's how we do it, okay? And we look, like I said, we stick in large metropolis areas in Canada. So we don't do projects in North Bay and Thunder Bay and places like that, because there's not enough market data to determine whether or not what's being built will sell. And selling it is what gets you your money back, right? Okay, so if you build a building right here and nobody buys it, that's not good for the mortgage lender. Okay, I have friends who say they can make a lot more than 8 to 10% per year in private mortgages. Is that true? Yes, and it's commensurate with risk. So if you lend to residential borrowers, second mortgages on their primary residence or on an investment property, typically you'll find rates are 11, 12, sometimes 13%, and the risk is commensurate with that. And what I find ironic about that is this. When you're negotiating, right, it should be a win-win. You want a win for the borrower and a win for the lender. So in the case of a builder or a developer, you think about it, he's got a property, it's worth $1 million. And what he's going to do is he's going to build houses on it. It's going to take 3 years. And he wants to borrow $800,000. And when it's all done, this is now going to be worth $5 million. And it's going to cost him, let's say 10% per year times 3 years on 800,000. That's 80,000 in year 1, 80,000 in year 2, 80,000 in year 3, $240,000 in interest to turn a property of $1 million value into something worth $5 million. It's a good deal for him. Mm-hmm. The cost of doing business. Okay, but if I lend to the wrong type of borrower that isn't building something with the money or creating more value, then he's going to spend the money, and then there's no value being created. So at the end of the day, I'm just going to have to hope he's disciplined, which he's got a track record for not being. That's why he's borrowing from me, and we've got that problem. So it's ironic. Now, you don't want to put your borrower in a position to default, right? So you don't want to charge him more. Like if I charge you 15%, I get excited that I'm going to make 15% of my investment until he stops paying because you put him underwater, right? So it's ironic. We don't want to go there. Now, some people do, and they do it successfully, but they're careful. And it's actually, that's the game. There are people out there who lend money to people who are over their head, and they just wait to take the property. Yeah? So you don't want to be in that situation. That's not what we're doing it for. So how much choice do I have in terms of who I lend my funds to? You have tons of choice. I'm going to show you something real quick. This is our website. You can go here anytime to check it out. Okay, it's two sections. There's mortgage and investing. You go to the investing side, and you go to the portfolio. You'll see every one of the projects that's available to invest in, and all the ones that are under pre-construction, and all the ones that are in construction, and all the ones that we have exited already, meaning investors got all their money back. Okay, and each project you'll see, you click on investment terms and it'll bring up a PDF you can download with all the terms and so on. You have total control. But what we do for you is that when you talk to us and say, Chris, I have X amount of dollars, let's say it's 100,000 just for easy math. Let's say you have $100,000. If you had $100,000 and you said, Chris, this is, I want to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have our people create something like this for you. A recommendation. So we're going to ask you a bunch of questions, find out what your needs are, what you're looking for, what type of money you're investing, and then we're going to create something like this. You see it's 15 pages long. What it's going to have is a little introduction just to tell you what's going on, what we're doing, what we're thinking, how is our philosophy. And then you're going to see a summary and methodology, which is going to show, in this case, okay, this person has 80,000 TFSA, 250,000 cash, and 45,000 in a lira. You'll notice here that the interest rates for each type of money is different because we selected different projects for the different types of funds. And then what we try to do is create a regular income schedule. Most of the projects pay on a quarterly basis. So rather than getting you projects that are all going to pay in January, April, and July, we get some that pay in January, some that pay in February. We weren't able to find any that pay in March, June, and September. But instead of every quarter, this person would be getting payments 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 months of the year. Okay? And then what else is going to be involved is a summary of each of the projects we recommend and why. And then at the back, you're going to find all those term sheets, the downloadables from the website. So you can participate as much or as little as you want in the process. There's the term sheets. You can participate as much or as little as you want in the process of selecting projects and whatnot. And it is a process. We take you through the whole process from top to bottom and figure out what your needs are and so on. There's no rocket science to it. It's just, that's how it should be. Okay, and I think we got maybe 1 or 2 more questions and then we're done. What's the worst situation an investor has gone through while invested in a mortgage you recommended? Well, I'd say that probably the worst situation we've had was that we've had, so delay is common, very common. So when you're dealing with construction, there's delay, especially in Canada where we have brutal winters. So you may have a 3-year project that ends up being 3.5 or even 4, but the interest meter keeps running, so you continue to get payments. So it's not, I always say it's delay rather than disaster in construction for the most part. We haven't experienced a disaster yet. But the worst situation anyone has ever, I would say, is we had one situation this time last year where a borrower wanted to refinance or renew their mortgage for an additional year, and we would have, like, from the beginning I would have, but halfway through the term, the borrower stopped being communicative. Like, so we would reach out for an update on what's happening with the project, how are things going, and the project was some distance away, so it wasn't like we could just get in the car and drive. And they weren't making progress, but they weren't talking to us. So when you have somebody like that, it creates a cloud of doubt. So when it came time for renewal, we said no. And then we had to give them a 30-day extension to try and find financing, and ended up taking 60 days. But they did find financing because you can put a set of steps in place to say, look, we're going to give you 60 days. If after the 60 days, it's to the court, right? And so that was probably the worst situation that we've encountered so far. But it's a process, and if it's managed properly, it's very, very straightforward. You would not believe what people will do. Like, family comes to the rescue. Nobody wants to lose their house. Nobody wants to lose their real estate. No one wants to lose their project. So, if it's managed well, should be okay. How long you been helping investors lend money? What's the track record? I think I've touched on that already. And on your website, it appears as if you recommend commercial mortgages more than residential. I touched on that too. We prefer the borrower profile, right? Defined exit, cost of doing business, and so on. And this has been really exciting. What's the process in getting started? You just send me an email. Like, just send me an email and say, I want to talk more about it. I liked what I saw, and that's it. Like, there's no sign-up sheet. There's none of that. It's just, I'm not going to ask Todor for who was here and send everybody something. This is not what we do. So if you want to get in touch with me, I'm there 9 to 5 every day. So email me and we'll talk. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And then again, I want to say before I go, like, this is what I do, right? This is what we do, my family, and it's done really well for us. And we have 300 pretty happy investors, I would say, that I would feel comfortable with any of you calling. That's how comfortable I would be. But it's not the end all and be all. It's not the only investment out there. It just has these characteristics that I like, that makes me feel safe. And so I highly recommend it. But I'll take any questions you have. And I know we went late, but hopefully it was worth it for you. I hope you got a lot of value from today. Yeah.
Well, you're renting, so are you not missing the most tax exemption in Canada is your primary home?
What do you mean?
Well, your equity gains from your primary home are tax exempt.
Yeah, you could probably make that argument, except that, I think sometimes we overestimate the value of tax. Like, I think we imagine tax to be such a big issue, when really, look at it, if I have to pay tax on something, it means I made money, which is a good problem. For me, when I did the math, I didn't arrive at that conclusion. Now, don't forget, it has a lot to do with time in my life, like where I am in my life. My daughter is 3 years old. We've already talked about the fact that when she becomes, school age, we're likely going to want to have a property again because we want her to grow up in a neighborhood. So this is the reality of life. So it's not all about the dollars and cents. Right now, it works for us. 3, 4, 5 years from now, maybe a different story. But that's why I think you need to be flexible in your strategies to maintain the ability to maneuver as life changes. But it's a good point. And in any scenario, you could be right. Yeah.
It's just when you think about real estate is
Any other questions? Yes.
I want to ask, as an investment firm, how do you differentiate yourself from, like, say, a big bank? Because I can go to TD and buy a alternative investment portfolio. Would that give me the same, like, how do you
Well, first and foremost, I don't think we're trying to compete with the bank. We're really not. Banks don't allow you, ironically, to participate in mortgages. You can't lend your money through a bank self-directed RSP account, for example. You have to participate. You have to use their products, right? Their mutual funds or their investment products. You would have to actually put your money into a trust company in order to invest it in mortgages. But in terms of differentiation, I mean, I don't think that we do this. This is maybe the greatest differentiator we have, is that we get up and we talk and teach people what they need to know so that they can take control of their money, because the bank isn't going to do it for you. The bank has their own interest to look after. So I never think of myself as competing with a bank. I really don't. In fact, I don't think of myself as competing with anybody. We just do what we do, and it works for us. Like, I don't say that with any arrogance. We just go about doing what we do. We found something that works. Everything I said to you is how I look at it. Like, found something that works, let's stick to it, master it, be great at it. And I think we've done that. So maybe that's the differentiator. Yeah.
Sorry, I may have missed this on your slide, but was there a minimum amount to that we can invest?
So there isn't really a minimum you can invest in mortgages, but what I will tell you is that the costs for a borrower to borrow money don't make sense unless they're borrowing a significant amount. So if you're looking to lend $10,000 or $15,000, $20,000, it'd be very difficult to find a borrower willing to pay the legal fees, the broker fees, all the rest of it, because those all factor in to the cost of borrowing. So you're looking at probably 25, 30 and up.
So do you do pool of investors or do you do single investors?
We do individual, but we also do syndicated mortgages, which is it's dangerous to use the word pool because a syndicate is something very different. The syndicate, for those that are doing it well, syndication means every investor has their own mini mortgage, essentially. So you have your own registration on title of the land, okay? The only thing you share with other investors is the position. So you're in first or second power of sale. So if you had $100,000 in a mortgage and I had $100,000, the first dollar that came out of that mortgage would go to you, the second one would go to me, and so on, or back and forth. There'd be no preference.
And depends on the percentage that they all.
Correct. Yeah, in proportion.
In proportion.
Yes.
I have another question. So basically, you are in the middle, kind of creating a package of a fund by different
Portfolio.
investors, portfolio.
Yes.
Investing that to a builder.
Several.
So, what insurance do you offer to these lenders if, God forbid, something goes wrong in your business as you're the middle person?
That's a great question. So actually, we are the facilitator, but we have no bearing on the investment itself. In fact, the flow of money goes from you to a lawyer in trust to the borrower and back. So if we faded away, right, it would not impact you in the least. Yeah, but I'm not going anywhere. Okay, guys, thank you very much. It's a little bit late. I know I went long. Thank you.